Namaste students, welcome to your social science, political science class. Yesterday we were studying about the union government. We studied about the union legislature. In that we studied about the Rajya Sabha. What are the qualifications that is required to become a member of Rajya Sabha? So the vice president here is the chairman of the Rajya Sabha and the deputy chairman is chosen among the members. At least 10% members of the members should be present during the sessions of the Rajya Sabha. The house meeting is the house should meet at least twice in a year. Now we will move on to the Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha is the house of the people. The member of the Lok Sabha are directly elected by the people of India. The term, let us see the term. According to the constitution, the term of the Lok Sabha is 5 years. However, it can be dissolved before the expiry of its normal term by the president on the advice of the prime minister. During the proclamation of an emergency, the period of the Lok Sabha may be extended for 1 year at a time. The new Lok Sabha must be elected within 6 months after the national emergency is lifted. Now the composition. So how is the composition of the Lok Sabha? The maximum strength of the Lok Sabha as provided by the constitution is 552. Out of this, first one, not more than 530 seats shall represent the state. Not more than 20 members shall represent the union territories. Thirdly, the 2 members of the Anglo-Indian community may be nominated by the president to the Lok Sabha in case if he feels that this community is not adequately represented. The allotment of the members to the various states is made on a population basis. Uttar Pradesh is represented in the Lok Sabha by 80 members. Maharashtra sends 48 members. Goa, Manipur and Meghalaya 2 each, and Mizoram, Nagaland and Sikkim 1 each. The Union Territory of Delhi sends 7 members to the Lok Sabha. Now, what should be the qualification of the members to become the member of the Lok Sabha? Let us see, children. So, there are certain conditions that is needed for a person to become a member of the Lok Sabha. Firstly, he should be the citizen of India. He should be at least 25 years of age. He should have his name in the electoral rolls in some part of the country. He should not be insolvent, that is, he should not be in debt and should have the ability to meet his financial commitments. He should not hold any office of profit under the government. He should not be proclaimed criminal. He should not be of unsound mind. As there is a qualification, even there is also a person can be disqualified for being chosen as and for being the member of the either house of the parliament. It might be of the Rajya Sabha or the Lok Sabha. We studied this yesterday in the Rajya Sabha. Let us see. If a member holds any office of profit under the government of India or government of any state other than the office exempted by the parliament by the law, but not a minister for the union or for a state. If he is of unsound mind and stands so declared by a competent court, if he is an undischarged insolvent, if he is not a citizen of India or has voluntarily acquired the citizenship of a foreign state or is under an acknowledgement of allegiance or adherence to a foreign power, if he is so disqualified by or under any law made by the Parliament. If any question arises as to whether a member of the either house of the Parliament has become a subject of any of the above's disqualification, the President's decision in accordance with the opinion of the Election Commission shall be final. A penalty of ₹500 per day may be imposed upon a person who sits or votes in either house of the Parliament, knowing that he is not qualified or that he is disqualified for the membership thereof. Now we will move on to the vacations of seats. The seats of the members of either house of the Parliament becomes vacant in the following situations. If a member resigns his seat by writing to the Speaker or to the Chairman, as the case may be. If a member is without a permission of the House absent for all the meetings for a period of 60 days, in computing the said period, no account is taken of any period during which the House is propagate or is adjourned for more than 4 consecutive days. If a member becomes the subject to any of the disqualification laid down in the Constitution or an Act of Parliament. If a person is already a member of the state legislature and is elected to the Parliament, he has to vacate his seat in the state legislature or vice versa. If a person is disqualified from being a member on ground of defection under the anti-defection law. So we also saw the role of the work of the opposition leader. What is the work of the opposition leader? To highlight the wrongdoings of the ruling government, examine the policies. Examine the policies of the government thoroughly, keep the government council of ministers and officials alert, and has a respectable position in the legislature. Now we will move on to the Lok Sabha. We will move on to the Lok Sabha Speaker. The Lok Sabha Speaker. The Speaker is the presiding officer of the Lok Sabha. He or she conducts the business of the House. He occupies a position of great authority and responsibility. He has a wide power to maintain the discipline in the House. In the table of precedence, he ranks higher than all the cabinet ministers other than the Prime Minister himself. With respect to the discharge of his powers and function, the Speaker is not answerable to anyone except the House. No court of law can go into the merits of a ruling given by him. Now let us move on to the elections. How a Speaker is elected? The Speaker of the Lok Sabha is elected from among its own members soon after the newly elected House meets for the first time. When the House is dissolved, the Speaker does not vacate his office. He remains in office till a new Speaker is elected by the new Lok Sabha. In the first meeting, the Speaker is elected for a term of 5 years. He can seek the re-election any number of times if he is elected as the member of Lok Sabha. The Speaker may resign his post on health or any other grounds by submitting a letter of resignation to the Deputy Speaker. The Speaker can also be removed by the Lok Sabha if the majority of the members pass a resolution to this effect. Now let us move on to the Deputy Speaker. What is the duty of the Deputy Speaker? The Constitution provides for the office of the Deputy Speaker, who performs the duty of the speaker when the latter is absent, means when the speaker is absent or while the office of the speaker is vacant. The deputy speaker is elected or is removed from the office in the same way of the speaker. Now let us move. What is the role and functions of the speaker? The role and functions of the speaker may be categorized under certain heads, that is the business of the house, the administrative functions, the disciplinary functions, and the parliamentary committees and the miscellaneous functions. Now children, we will move on to the powers and functions of the parliament, that is the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The Parliament of the Indian Parliament of India comprises the President, the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. The two houses of Parliament are not competing centers of power but are co-partners in the functioning of the government. They enjoy the equal power and status in all the spheres except in the financial matters and in terms of the responsibilities of the Council of Ministers, which are exclusively in the domain of the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha has equal powers with Lok Sabha in important matters like the impeachment of the President, removal of the Vice President, constitutional amendments and removal of the judges of the Supreme Courts and the High Courts. Every presidential ordinance, proclamation of emergency and proclamation of the failure of constitutional machinery in a state must be placed before both the houses of the Parliament. In case of disagreement between the two houses, a joint sitting of the two houses is convened where matters are decided by the majority vote. Now we will move on to the legislative powers. All the bills you can see here children, the speakers of the parliament, Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, the differences. Vice President of the nation is the speaker. Here speaker is through voting by elected members. Here administratively second head of the nation, administratively third head. So administrative heads and responsible for flawless workings of respective houses and power to take penal actions against the members of respective houses, power to vote for motion in the situation of deadlock and power to suspend the respective house sine die for the particular period. So the leader of the opposition, the key or spokesperson for the opposition and the head of the shadow cabinet. And there is a ledger of the largest non-government party and most senior shadow minister. When we see this one, the speaker's podium, we are having the first probe, that is a prime minister, deputy prime minister, member of the government whip, and we are also having the leader of opposition, deputy leader of opposition, member of opposition and opposition whip, the judges table where it takes place. Yeah, we were moving on to now let us move on to the legislative powers. All bills other than the money bills can originate in any house of the parliament. No bill can become a law unless agreed to by both the houses. If there is a disagreement, the president may summon both the houses of the parliament in a joint meeting. At the joint sitting, issues are decided by a majority of the members of both the houses present and voting. The parliament houses is competent to make laws on the matters regarding the union list. So the parliament has exclusively powers to make laws on all the 97 subjects mentioned in the union list. including the important subjects like defense, communication, foreign policy, etc. Secondly, matters in concurrent list. Along with the state legislative assemblies, the parliament can take laws on the 47 subjects listed in the concurrent list. If there is a conflict between the union government and the state legislature on any law in this list, the union law will prevail. Thirdly, residuary powers. The parliament possesses the residuary powers. It means that it can make laws with respect to all those matters which are not mentioned in any of the three lists. So, which are those three lists? Can you tell me, children? Yeah, they are the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. Fourthly, matters in the state list. The parliament can legislate even on subjects included in the state list. That is during the proclamation of an emergency. When the Rajya Sabha passes a resolution by a 2/3 majority that a subject in the state list has assumed national importance. When two or more states are of the opinion that the parliament should legislate on a subject given in the state list, the parliament may make an act on that subject, but that would be applicable only to the consenting powers, consenting states, children, sorry. Ordinances. Fifthly is the ordinance. The president is empowered to promulgate an ordinance at a time when the parliament is not in a session. It has some effects on as an act. All ordinances must be put up before both the houses for their approval. Ordinances cease to operate after 6 weeks from the reassembly of the parliament unless they are approved by the houses. Next, sixthly, the last legislative power is the powers during emergency. When there is a total breakdown of the constitutional machinery in a state of emergency is declared in the state. During the period of emergency, the parliament becomes the legislature in the state concerned and assumes all the powers, including the financial powers of passing the state budget. Next, we are having the financial powers. A money bill can originate in the Lok Sabha only. After a money bill is passed by the Lok Sabha, it is sent to the Rajya Sabha for its recommendations, which it must make within 14 days. In financial matters, the Rajya Sabha has only an advisory role. The budget. The parliament passes the union budget containing the estimates of the receipts and expenditure of the government for a financial year. The budget is presented in two parts. One is the railway budget and another one is the general budget. Next, we are having the supplementary grants in financial powers. It is the amount of authorized for the current financial year is not sufficient. The government may make a fresh demand known as a supplementary grant. Thirdly, vote on account. If the union budget is not passed before the beginning of the new financial year, that is April 1st, there would be no money for the executive to spend. So, there is therefore a device known as vote on account, which authorizes the executive to draw funds from the consolidated fund until the budget is passed by the parliament. Fourthly, salaries. The salaries and allowances of MPs and ministers are determined by the parliament. Fifthly, the permissions of taxes. No tax can be imposed or money spent by the government without the approval of the parliament. In matters of finance, the Lok Sabha enjoys more powers than the Rajya Sabha. Money bills can be introduced only in Lok Sabha. Once the money bill goes to the Rajya Sabha, they have to be sent back to the Lok Sabha within 14 days. The Lok Sabha may accept or reject the recommendations of the Rajya Sabha. Then we are having the control over the executive. The Council of Ministers is collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. The minister remains in the office as long as they enjoy the confidence of a majority of members in the Lok Sabha. Parliament exercises control over the executive in the following manner. That is the interpellation, vote of no confidence. Vote of no confidence means if a government acts against the constitutional provisions, it can be voted out of the office bypassing the a vote of no confidence against the Prime Minister or the ministry as a whole or any of its member. In such a case, the whole ministry has to resign. Then we are having the adjourned motion, the other motions of censure and monetary controls. So when we tell monetary controls during the budget session, a cut motion may be moved. Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts ensures that public money is spent in accordance with the Parliament's decision. It examines the reports of the Comptroller and the Auditor General of India. Now we will move on to the next power, that is the judicial power. Both the houses of the Parliament have the authority to remove the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court through a motion of impeachment. So, in case of the Parliament performs some judicial functions, it has right to remove the President from the office through the procedure known as impeachment. In case of violation of the Constitution or grave misconduct, either house may frame charges against the President. If a resolution to this effect is passed by a two-thirds majority of total membership of the House and by the majority of the members present and voting, the other House investigates the charges. If the other House too finds the President guilty, they may be impeached and removed from the office. Next, we are having the removal of judges. The Parliament can remove the judges of the Supreme Court and the High Court. The Chief Election Commissioner and the Comptroller and the Auditor General of India, if they are found guilty and violating the provisions of the Constitution. Punishment. The Parliament can punish a person for obstructing the work of Parliament or showing disrespect to the House. In 1961, the Parliament reprimanded the editor of the Blitz for ridiculing a member of the Parliament. Now we will move on to the next, that is the electoral rolls. The Indian Parliament has to perform certain electoral duties as well as such as the Parliament of India along with the state legislature elects the President of India. The Vice President of India is elected by both the houses of the Parliament. Thirdly, the Lok Sabha elects its own speaker and the deputy speaker from amongst its own members, while the Rajya Sabha elects its deputy chairman. Apart from that, we are also having the amendment, the powers to amend the Constitution. Both the houses of the Parliament can amend the Constitution. The amendment must be passed by each of the House by the majority of total membership and by two-thirds of majority of members present and voting. Otherwise, the amendment bill cannot be passed. In some cases, children, the amendment requires the ratification or approval of half of the legislative assemblies of states. Apart from that, we are also having other powers. The Parliament may alter the name or boundary of the state if needed. It can also form a new state by merging the territories of existing states or by separating a part of a territory from a state. It makes laws regarding the composition, jurisdictions, and the powers of the Supreme Power Court. The Parliament may establish a common High Court with two or more states. Now let us move on to some of the special powers which are there, powers of the Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha has some exclusive powers, though the Parliament cannot in normal times make laws on a state subject. The Constitution states that under Article 249 of the Constitution, the Rajya Sabha may by a resolution adopted by 2/3 majority empower the Parliament should make laws with respect to the matter in the state list. The Lok Sabha has no authority to assert itself in such matters. The other special power enjoyed by the Rajya Sabha is that it may declare the creation of all the new India services be made the national interest. Thereupon, Parliament may create a new services. Thirdly, if the Lok Sabha is dissolved before or after the declaration of national emergency, the Rajya Sabha becomes a solo de facto and de jure parliament. That is, it takes over the functions of the parliament. It cannot be dissolved. This is the limitation of the Lok Sabha. Now let us know about some of the special features, powers of the Lok Sabha. The Lok Sabha has a special powers which makes it more powerful than the Rajya Sabha. These special powers are: first one, motions of no confidence against the government can only be introduced and passed in the Lok Sabha. If passed by the majority vote, the Prime Minister and the Council of Ministers resign collectively. The Rajya Sabha has no power over such a motion and hence no real power over the executive. Money bills. Secondly, the money bills can also be introduced in the Lok Sabha and upon being passed are sent to the Rajya Sabha, where it can be deliberated on for up to 14 days. Thirdly, in case of a deadlock between the two houses over a non-financial, that is the ordinary bill, the will of the Lok Sabha normally prevails as its strength is more than the double that of the Rajya Sabha. So with this we finish up with the power and functions of the Parliament and the special powers of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Children, in the next class we will move on to the Union Executive and the President, or how a President is elected and what are his qualifications to become a President and what are the powers of the President. We will study this in the next class. Thank you, children.